Hey Tankers, this is Eric over at Taigen Tanks, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to diagnose most of your problems concerning motors and gearboxes and stuff like that inside of your tanks. Now, what I happen to have here is I have an elevation unit. I believe this is from one of the Stug models. I also have a turret rotation unit right here. This is from the Tiger 1. I also have a smoke unit and an airsoft unit. And I will show you how to test these guys here in a few minutes. Now, the one good thing about these is all of the motors in here are brushed motors, which pretty much makes diagnosing these guys a lot easier. We don't have to have a brushless speed controller or anything like that to diagnose and see what's wrong with them. You can use things just as simple as a 4-cell AA case here. So this one will hold 4 AA's and it'll give you about a little over 6 volts. Most AA batteries are around 1.5 to 1.6 volts, so you're going to run just a hair over 6 volts for one of those. We also have the smaller AAA versions as well. What I like to do with mine, this one is very old and very used, guys, so forgive me on the horrible tape job here. This is my 6-volt tester here. It has banana plugs so that I can hook up whatever I need into here to get the output that I need. So if I need a Dean's connector, if I need alligator clips, if I need whatever I need, I have it through this one. Okay, so that one has banana connectors on the end here. Now I've also got a clean one, which, guys, if you do this, make sure that you insulate the wires when you're done. Okay. These have been tinned. It's kind of hard to show it here. The wires have been tinned. Since it is 6 volts and it's AA batteries, you're not going to have any sparks or anything. But make sure you tape your wires when you're done, guys. Don't screw around and mess up the step. Okay. So I will be using this one later. It's just a little easier to get some of these little brush motors. That's one of the reasons I have 2 different versions, one of the banana connectors and one just bare leads. Now I also have a 8 battery holder as well. This guy will put out about 12 volts. So a little over 12 volts actually. You can use this guy to test your gearboxes if you want. Just make sure you unhook your gearbox from your motherboard before you use this, or you will burn up your motherboard. So absolutely do not hook any of the power up to anything without disconnecting that lead from the motherboard. It is actually safe just to unplug everything before we start doing this stuff, because when we test these motors, you can actually feed power back to the motherboard. It's not a good thing. So go ahead and unhook everything from your motherboard. Now, what you can do is, say we have an elevation unit here, and we know that it's given us flak. You can actually do this inside of the tank. I've only taken it out to make it a little bit easier on you guys here. Now, what we need to figure out is if it's the motherboard or controller, one of the daughter boards that it's messed up, or if it's just the motor itself that's gone bad. Now, one of the good things about these little brush motors is they last for a long, long time, and they're pretty darn durable. So most of the time, when you start having an issue, it's due to wiring. Something maybe got smashed when you close something, or something like that. So the easiest way to tell is to always put less voltage than this will hold. Okay, so we know in the tank, this is going to get anywhere from about 6 to 9 volts, depending on the voltage and stuff. So 6 volts here is going to be fine. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set it on here. Now, when you test brushed motors, it doesn't matter which one is positive and which one's negative. The only thing that does is just reverse the output of the motor. So if we go positive here and negative here, it may make it spin clockwise. But if you just swap the leads, it would actually spin counterclockwise. So no damage to the motor. What we're going to do is apply a positive and negative to the leads here and make sure that we get some kind of operation here. Okay, so we can see that the elevation unit is working. So if we were troubleshooting, we would know that this unit is okay, and we would need to follow our steps backwards all the way to the motherboard to try to find something that's broken. Since the motor is working, there's usually only a few options. You either have a bad solder, or there's a wire messed up somewhere along the lines. Only thing you need to do is just trace those wires back. If you need a wiring diagram, just ask us, guys. We can give you one. Same thing for the turret traverse system. This guy actually sits in the tank, and he gets bolted up like this against the top of the hole. Okay, so you guys will actually have to unscrew this guy here, here, and here to pull him off. But we can check him just like we checked the other one. We can either do, since this one actually has wires already coming from it, we could actually cheat if we wanted to and use, I'm going to go ahead and hook up my 6-volt here with my banana connectors, and I've got alligator clips on the end. Now these alligator clips are nice because you can run them up over like that. You don't have to worry about them touching each other. So that's what I say, insulate your wires and stuff earlier we were talking about. Now we're going to go negative to negative. Once again, this doesn't matter on the polarity when you come to test these motors. Now we only have to touch it here. Now, since we're turning, I'll move it out of the way here. Since we're turning, we know it works. Now, if you guys noticed, it's going counterclockwise. Now, let's go ahead and reverse the polarity here. So we have negative to positive. And then once again, we're going to put positive to negative. Now it's going clockwise. So if one of your motors is backwards, check your leads. All right, so let's move on to the next guy over here. So now we've tested the turret rotation and elevation unit, which the elevation unit comes in 2 or 3 different shapes. So if yours looks a little different, it'll work the same. The smoke unit, we did this on a previous video. This one, I'm going to use my power supply because I do like to vary the voltage a little bit on these guys before they go out. I test all these before they leave. Now, I'm not really sure which connector this was. It looked like it used to be like a JST XH connector. I cut it down to fit this little JST XH plug. So just beware of that, guys. So pretty much when this turns on, I've already got them dialed down, so it should be around 7.7 to 8 volts will be the minimum for this guy right here. This is one of our 20 amp DC outputs. This is one of my favorite. You'll see it on a bunch of videos of mine. So let's go ahead and crank it on. When we crank it on, this unit is already going to start working. Okay. Now, this one, we've already got them plugged in down here in the correct polarity. So don't mess with the polarity on the smoke units. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and crank this on here. And immediately, we're going to get some smoke out of that. So now you can see we're rolling at about 7.7 volts here. Okay, and we're drawing at about 0.7 amps. So we're going to go ahead and crank it up here. I can stop breathing and stuff. I'll point it a little this way here. So let's crank it on up to about 9 volts. Okay, so we're sitting about 9 volts there. We got plenty of smoke. I usually run them for about 20 to 30 seconds to make sure they're good. Crank up the voltage just a hair. I usually test it about 9.5 is the max I go. We'll crank it back down, and we'll turn this off. Now, be careful when you run DC power supplies, guys. Same thing with chargers that run DC out. Sometimes they stay on for a few more seconds. So just to see no kind of harm, go ahead and unplug it, turn your switch back on, off, off. That'll drain the rest of the power in there. Okay. Now, go ahead and unplug this. We know the smoke unit works. I'm sorry if there's still smoke around here, guys. We're working on the smoke units and we're getting them better, as you guys can see in the videos here. And that's one of the old ones too, not one of the new ones I'm testing. Now we have the airsoft unit here. This guy's a little tricky. There's a bunch of wires coming from him. 2 of the wires are going to be from the contact switch. We've gone over this in an earlier video. We'll redo the video here pretty soon so you guys can have a better description of that. And pretty much what that 2-wire is it's this 2-wire plug right here, and that controls the track recoil and the sound after you fire. So if you guys are missing your track recoil and you're missing your sound, most likely this cord will come unplugged from your motherboard, so check that out. This dangles down like that out of the airsoft unit and plugs into the motherboard at the bottom there. Now, we've also got 3 wires that'll be coming back from the motor here. Okay. Now, 2 of these are going to be hooked up to the motor. I don't know if you guys can really see there. pretty much what you're going to do for the airsoft unit is you don't have to test this guy. You can just leave it in your tank, plug it in, and then listen for the motor. If you guys hear the motor whirl, spinning up, but nothing happening on the inside, we're all okay, and that's good. What we have to worry about is when you go to fire these guys and there's no sound. When there's no sound, you will need to remove the motor here by removing the screw, pull out this motor, and out of your replacement unit, or out of the stock unit. So if this is the stock one you get, what you'll have to do is take this whole unit out and just replace it with a brand new one. Now, if you guys happen to have the motor that still works, and the airsoft unit right here is the one that falls, the only thing you'll have to do is just slide the motor out and slide it into the new casing, and then you can just put it back in your tank. So the only thing you have to do is just swap out the casing here. Most of the time, like I've said a few times here, these DC brush motors are really, really strong. They're reliable. They last a long time. Most of the time when there's an issue, it has to do with wiring, soldering, or a connection somewhere. So that's really good when it comes to replacing those airsoft units because, once again, you can just pop the motor out and then pop it into your new case. Okay, and the new case will come with a motor as well, just like this one does, except for you can recycle your old motor and you don't have to do any kind of soldering. So it's actually a quick swap. It can be done in just a few minutes. Okay, so that's our airsoft unit. I know it was a little bland on that one. There's not really much to test on this guy. You can manually test this motor if you wish. Using the contacts right here, you'll have to take this screw off, pull this piece off, and you can just slide the motor out using a little screwdriver press right on this little pinion gear here. All right, next we have gearboxes. Okay, here's the thing, guys. These motors are really good. They're nice 380 motors, and they will handle 9 volts. I've run them on 9 volts plenty of times. I've heard of people running them on 12 volts, but don't do it. If you do it, don't expect for any kind of support from us, guys. You want to run 3-cell, get yourself a brushless motor. But the reason I brought that up is because I'm going to be testing this guy at 6 and 9 volts. Now we have 2 options to test this guy. If I can undo the wires here. We can either power him by our battery case, which we can use something like this with our 6 volt, or we could possibly run it with a 12 volts. I've done this a few times before, but once again, I don't recommend it. Just kind of stick in between the 6 and 9 volts, guys. Now you can use the 6 volt. We can hook up the 6 volt just by touching the leads here on this plug. Or you could do it by touching the motors. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, since I've already got an octopus cable here, and I've already got this little cable cut out for this little JST XH connector here, I'm going to go ahead and hook this guy up. Alright, and we're going to go positive to positive, negative to negative on this one. Okay, now, once again, when we turn this on, it's going to be extremely fast and already start outputting here. So if you guys aren't ready for it, make sure you got it in your hand or you've got it somewhere safe where it's not going to pinch some skin. Okay, so once again, we're going to start with about 8 volts, okay, 7.7 to 8 volts. Like I said, immediate, guys, so be careful there. Now this one is working just fine. We have no spinning issues. You don't see any kind of gear play when I put my finger in there. Do not do that. I've been doing this for a long time. Now we're going to go ahead and crank up the voltage a little bit. Okay, so we're around 9.4. That's about the max that I like to go through here. It seems pretty good. The motor's staying nice and cool. The gears are a little loud, but that's something that a little bit of grease will help with. Let's go ahead and crank it down. Now there's no gear warpage, there's no sliding, no overheating issues, so this one is going to be good, okay? And if you guys can see, the shaft is really straight, it's just that flat going around out there. So if we put it right there, you can see there's no warping at all. Okay, so that's what we're mainly looking for. I'll go ahead and cut this guy off. And once again, you see that? How it took a while to turn off like that? So make sure you guys watch that. And then remember, go ahead and unplug your power supply. Toggle it a few times. I've been shocked way too many times not to take these kind of precautions, guys, and I wish you would too. So, that's all. That is how you diagnose your motors. Now, we do have one last way to test motors if you guys are not running um, a battery case or something of this sort. You can always use your real battery. I don't suggest doing this, but it's a last resort kind of thing, guys. You can go ahead and get yourself an adapter plug like this. We got a Tamiya on one end and two banana connectors on the end. You can plug this in. You will get direct voltage, and you can use these to test. But I don't like using nickel metal hydride or lithium type batteries just because of the amounts of voltage they can output at one time. It can actually discharge, it can spark, it can cause a fire, you can cause all kinds of issues. Um, it's just not a good idea to use these guys for a power supply. That's why I suggest these type of guys, because there is very little damage you really have to worry about. However, if you leave these together and they touch a metal and touch something metal, they will overheat these batteries. So do not mess around. Just add yourself a piece of electrical tape. You can go ahead and invest in these guys. They're just a few dollars. In fact, I've got them here in IMX. This one is IMX 10131, and that holds 4 AA's. And then I've also got 10132, and that holds 4 AA's. I do not have any more of the 8 AA battery holders, but you guys can search around on the interwebs and find yourself one. So that is how you diagnose DC motors, and hopefully this guy saves you a little bit of time when it comes to figuring out what's wrong with things.